Hello all, welcome to my Excel tutorial. Sorry if the audio is not the highest quality, and I hope you experience an immediate boost in productivity if you use Excel and adopt some of my suggestions. So obviously I'll tell you why you should be interested in this, why I'm giving this away, how you can set up your personal macro workbook. That's the key to the whole thing, because you get a bunch of utilities that you can use with just about any workbook that you open, and that workbook that you open does not have to be a macro enabled workbook. How you can get unlimited keyboard shortcuts with Excel. My favorite, we'll look at some examples. Is basically what my favorite utilities is. We won't have time for everything. I want to keep this short so you don't get bored, and hopefully I'll show you some eye-popping macros that will save you time in future. What it is about an improved setup and then some useful shortcuts. Why should you do this? Because I think you'll see an immediate boost in productivity. So you get more time to yourself if you adopt my suggestions. How do you get this? Go to my GitHub. That's here. /excel, and then personal.xlsp is the file that you need. And what you do with that file, I'll let you know pretty soon. It's all safe. I could export the macro workbook into a bunch of text files, but then I don't know how you would easily generate your macro workbook using those files. So all the source code is on GitHub. I recommend just downloading the XLSP and then installing that. Installing as in just copying it to a certain location. And then I built these using freelancers on Upwork, so it is safe and there's nothing to worry about. Okay, and then why am I giving it away? Because I think if anyone's productivity gets a boost, we all benefit, because then people get more done with in the same time. They're happier, and I think you'll experience flow if you use keyboard shortcuts to get things done fast. That's the primary reason I use it, because I don't want to be slowed down by the tool. We already talked about where you can get it. What do you do when you get it? If you don't have a personal macro workbook at all, the first thing you do is, assuming the developer tab is not visible, that's this guy. How do you get that? Google is your friend. It takes just less than a minute. Then to create your personal macro workbook for the first time, what you would do is record a macro, tell it to store it in the personal macro workbook. Then you go into your view tab and unhide the personal macro workbook. When it's unhidden, you can do save as, and then that'll immediately tell you where it is. And then you can exit Excel and copy my file into that location to overwrite that workbook personal macro workbook that you just created, and then you get all my shortcuts right away. Okay, bunch of examples, so let's go over those. So this is what I'll be covering. You'll see the whole list. I can't go over all of them, and there are a couple of them that are not listed here, but just to give you a quick example, suppose you want to see only the rows that have some form of non-default highlighting. The banding that you see, the highlighting that's responsible for the banding, is native to Excel. When you create a table, you can choose a format that gives you that banding. So it's not considered highlighting. So you can, here's an example. This is a shortcut, CTRL SHIFT H, that lets you highlight. Now what if you want to see only the rows that have some form of highlighting? That's CTRL ALT H, and this is something that a freelancer did for me. And you can restore. What if you only want to see rows for which cells in this column only are highlighted? CTRL ALT SHIFT H. So what I'm saying is there are ways you can boost your productivity easily if you know what's available. So you've seen this, and you can always pause the video and look at these. And so I'll keep this on the other monitor and work with another file that I've got. So this is one that I got from data.gov. 9/11 calls for service. I took their file and then condensed it to only look at the first 2 days of November. So first thing you do, of course, is you pull it into Excel and make it an Excel workbook rather than a CSV, and then I split the date and time into two columns so it's easier to see. So this is something that is very handy. So let's say you don't have this, or let me show you how useful it is. Let's say you sort. So once you've created a table, and how you would do that is, if you have a bunch of data, let's just take a bunch of data. Okay, let's take all of this. Let's create another tab, let's paste this. Okay, just was only. And now you want to create a table out of this, you just go to Format as Table. And then that gives you this right away. And now if you want to delete a sheet without confirmation, that's CTRL ALT SHIFT delete. Anyway, so now let's say I want to show you what the value of this column of serial numbers is. So let's say you sorted, let's say you didn't have it, and now you sorted this row, and the keyboard shortcut for that is CTRL SHIFT A. So let's say you did that. How can you go back to the original state? There is no, if you do CTRL Z, it doesn't work. Now why that is, I don't know. Excel doesn't support that. But because you have this, you can just come here and sort this column on by ascending order. And that brings you back to the original state. So that's one of the first things I do with any table. If I get a workbook from someone that has a bunch of data, first thing I'll do is try to cast it into an Excel table using Format as Table. And then the first thing I'll do is add the serial number column. How would you do that? Let's say you didn't have this at all. The macro works if you have hash, and then CTRL SHIFT V does that. You can do CTRL SHIFT W if you want them in reverse order. CTRL SHIFT V for now. Okay, so now let's say, so I showed you sorting. Now let's say, now this is one thing, what I'm going to describe now is something that Excel does not natively provide, and that is excluding. Filtering Excel does provide. Let's say you want to look at only the high priority 911 calls, right? That's just CTRL SHIFT F, and you get all the high priority calls. So let's go back to unfiltered is CTRL ALT F. Now how would you get that? Now you see that the drop downs are gone, right? That's because if I unfilter, it also gets rid of the drop downs. So I mentioned this in that file, which you in the other spreadsheet that you saw just a couple of minutes ago. But if you do want it, what you can do is you can filter, and then unfilter this column only. That's CTRL ALT C. That gives, then you have the drop downs. So what I was going to say about CTRL SHIFT F is you can filter using this, but why would you when you could do it with a keyboard shortcut? Right now, if you wanted to select only the high items, high priority items, you'd have to do this. So it's a bunch of steps. When you can do it with one, just select a cell, and now you want to see only the rows for which this column has its value equal to this cell's contents. Okay, now that's good. But what about you want to hide the rows, you want to exclude all rows that are high priority? How would you do that? Or let's say you don't want to look at anything low priority. That's something that Excel does not natively provide. This is something that a freelancer named Jordan Goldmeyer did for me. It's been almost a couple of years now. And then a person called Ronald Kalma on Upwork had to fix a minor bug with it. So CTRL SHIFT E is what will do that. And you can keep enhancing that. Let's say you've done that, but now you also don't want to see anything that is related to anything that has pickup orders on the description. So CTRL ALT E. So now you've filtered two columns by excluding. Right? So CTRL ALT F will do that. What else are the high? Okay, this is something that I just love. This is a freelancer named Attila Pazmundi in Hungary built for me on Upwork. Let's say you have a bunch of other sheets containing useful data, of course. These are blank. And now you want to quickly create a table of contents. That CTRL ALT T will do that. And I'm trying to see if, yeah, that's there. So now you can very quickly go back here, and then you can always press CTRL H to go back to the table of contents. And this can be named index. It doesn't have to be TOC, but you can get back there anytime. It looks for either TOC or index, or I think home. Home will also work. But if you get rid of this and create the table of contents from scratch, it'll be called TOC. So that's CTRL ALT T is what does that for you. And then let's look at one more cool thing, because let's say you don't want to be boring, you want to have a picture, because it's always nice, right, to have something. Let's say we capture this and put this in here, right, and it gives you something to look at, you know, right away. And then now let's say you did something, you added some more sheets and just put in some data. And now you want to generate the table of contents again. If you notice, it keeps that picture and it does this. And this, it's supposed to be intelligent. It might not work perfectly because obviously the testing has been limited. But that's something that I use very frequently. And what else do I want to show? I've shown you filtering, sorting. So let's say you want to look at you want to sort by date. That is Control Shift A will sort ascending, Control Shift D starts descending. And again, you can always come back. Now, if you don't have to come here and sort on this table. You can always do Control Alt A, I believe. And it will sort using the serial number column. Then another thing that's kind of hard to notice on this one, but Control Alt G will get rid of the grid. Okay. Now this is one that's okay. This will actually, you will see that this is useful. Control Shift X generates a legend. So let's say you take this entry and you want to see all the data in an easy to read format. So Control Shift X. It can occasionally be very useful because what it's done is it's generated. I call it a legend, but you can see here how hard it is to see everything, right? You can scroll, but that's not what you want to do. You want to, if you're interested in one particular observation, you want to be able to see that data easily. So it gives you this legend, so you can see all this data in an easy to view format. And then, like I said before, Control Alt G toggles the grid. Let's close this. So again, Control Shift X generates that legend. You can see everything here. What's the it looks like, okay, the call date and call time are not displayed in a very friendly. Okay, so it's obviously not perfect, but you get the idea. In another case, it might be really handy. I use that from time to time. What else is there that you need to know? Control J is okay, it's probably not a good one to cover right now, but anyway, hope I conveyed that there are some features that Excel does not natively provide, and you get all of them for free if you use my bind keys. And the benefit is in generating, the key ones are generating this table of contents, easily going to the table of contents. You can navigate between sheets rather than using the tabs at the bottom or the names at the bottom, which I find annoying, especially if you have 30 sheets. What can you do? You'd much rather see them here, right? What else? Yeah, sorting, filtering is big. You don't want to look at rows that have a certain entry. Like I don't want to look at medium priority. I just do Control Shift E, hides all of those. Control Alt F just to unfilter. So these are the big ones. Oh, this is big too. It might not work that well on this big sheet, but let's see. Control and then Control Shift and the square bracket, closing square bracket, gets you into this mode where you can. It's handy for presentations. You can highlight the cell and the row and column of the active cell. It can be very, very handy for presentations. If you're looking at a ton of data on the screen, and Control Shift open box bracket will get rid of it. What if you only want the row? That's Control Shift angle bracket, closing angle bracket gets you into this mode. And I just love these also. They've come in handy more than once. What if you want to move a row? That's Control and then the arrow key. Okay, didn't like that for some reason. That's fine. Okay, let's delete this guy. I don't want that, but you know that that's available now. For some reason it didn't work very well, but let's see if it works here. Let's come here and paste this here. So I want to move this row to the right. Control right. Okay, Control left. Okay, so it's working here. For some reason it didn't work over there, but that's okay. All right, well, I hope these save you a lot of time. And if you have ideas for more feature utilities, let me know. I have some freelancers who are willing to work on them, so thanks.